Page 114, exercises 8.5, 8.6, and 8.7. I'm going to combine them all here. They all kind of go together. In 8.5, they're just giving you the basic chords of the other exercises of what we're doing. This is the C chord, and then this chord. I'm not actually playing every note in 8.5, I'm just giving you an idea. These are the chords that are being used in these other exercises. And it's usually a good idea. I mean, when you look at something like 8.7, there, the piece itself on page 115, you think, good Lord, what's going on? And then if you learn to look at these things in chords, you see that first measure, you have here, 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 here. Well, that's the chord they're showing you in 8.5. That's it. So by learning to play even though they're broken up in 8.7 there, play them block to learn them, because that gets your fingering. What are you going to do with the fingers? Type thing. And that then when you go to actually break it up, it's a little easier because you already know the notes. That's the idea. I highly recommend it. It's when you get something like that, just learn to see it in chords and play the block chords and see what's going on. Now to exercise 8.6, we're getting a little technique here. This is for the right hand on the broken chord. All we're doing is I use the weight distribution. I'm going to roll the hand, and as I do that, my wrist is just automatically going to do whatever it does. I don't worry about it. Now, in this exercise, be careful in the words. It can be a little misleading with the words they're using because they're talking about lateral movement. Lateral movement is side to side. And don't make the wrist go side to side. This is an unnatural movement. We don't use it hardly at all in piano, and don't use it if you can help it. What they're talking about, because the notes are going up, broken chords, you're going to kind of roll it and your wrist is just going to naturally do its thing. Just let the wrist do its thing. Don't force anything, but transfer the weight in that first measure of the first, and exercise 8.6 at the beginning. Play the thumb, transfer the weight to the second finger, they say. Then the fourth finger, so I'm just doing this. I'm not holding it still and using the fingers. That was a technique a long time ago, and if you're actually playing a harpsichord, you might have to do that because it's a different feel, it's a different instrument. Everything's different. It doesn't hurt. I mean, if you can do that just for fun, hold the wrist still and just use the fingers and see what it feels like. When you're going to play this thing, I recommend you transfer the weight. Let the wrist just do its thing. When you play the E in the first measure, then you immediately transfer the weight back down. See? And that makes the wrist do its thing. So, and that's really what they're after. Now, they also show you hairpins there. You can get louder and swell each one. That's an interpretive thing. You don't have to do that. You could use other crescendos. I could use a crescendo through the whole thing. Whatever. I mean, Bach didn't put in any dynamics or interpretation stuff. He just put in the notes. He didn't even put in a tempo. It's up to you, the performer, to get a feel of the music and how loud are you going to play it or how soft. Now, editors over the years have added what they think it is for their interpretation, so we just kind of follow those anymore. Take a look at the beginning of exercise 8.7. It starts out soft with a sempre legato. Sempre means always. Legato means connected, smooth and connected. You can't do smooth on a piano, but you can do connected. But the kicker here is there's no pedal. Now, you'll see people pedaling this. And I was taught in college when I played Bach keyboard music, I was never allowed to use pedal, ever. It was all hands. The keyboard did everything. I'm sure if Bach had instruments with pedals at the time he was alive, he would have used pedal. I don't think he has anything against using pedal in these things. But it's just, for me, it's out of habit and out of respect for the teachers I've had, that I just don't use pedal on Bach at all. keyboard-wise. Now, if it's an arrangement of, say, an orchestra reduction or something, then I might use pedal, because that's different. But there's finger pedaling going on, and that happens a lot in Bach. Over here at the top of page 115 on this exercise, you look at the left hand. Those are finger pedal, really. You're just holding you hold C down for full 2 counts, and then you're going to hold the E down for 1.5 counts. And you'll see this in the left hand throughout. But the right hand is just the idea is it gives this continual basso, or with this bass sound. The bass is like holds everything up, and it just gives this chord sound throughout the whole thing, no matter what's going on top. So we have that. And you get that throughout. I don't use the fingering they've got. I have there's different styles of fingering, and I tend to use what I'm used to. So you can follow their fingering, it's fine. I will make a suggestion on at the end in a little bit. But I want to talk about on page 115, the second line, last measure. In the right hand you have here. I just recently got a question from a person who's recently started, an elderly person, elderly is 60 plus, whatever. And his fingers are too fat to fit in between the keys without it tends to push. Some people are. Yeah. Anton Rubinstein, his fingers were fat, and he had problems there. He would push down keys he didn't want to. So I told him, good luck, but you pretty much got to change your fingering. So it's like an example of this is the last measure of the second line there, where they're saying 1, 2, 4. Don't have to do that, because I told him to use 2 instead, and that way he can stay out here. And that's pretty much, if your fingers are too fat to get in there, that's pretty much what you got to do. You got to adjust the fingering so you're not using the thumb unless you absolutely have to. Or if the thumb is played in such a way that the finger you got to get in between happens to be one of the keys that doesn't have a black note in between, because there you got more room. There you hopefully can do that one. But otherwise, if it's one of these with a black note on each side, then you got to find a fingering so you don't have to use the thumb if you can. And here, 2, 3, 5 is fine. See, because you got time to move your hand around, because you got to rest, an 8th note rest at the beginning of each measure, so your right hand has time.